Hey everybody, this is Ashley McNulty with Coldwell Banker, and this is my second Ask Me Anything video. And today I have Preston Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolinas, and he has graciously offered to come in and answer some questions that you might have and talk a little bit about why it's important to have a home inspection done, what they're looking for, what they're not going to look for. And just so you know, we're recording it on several different devices. So if we look like we're not paying attention, we really are. But it's, we've got like 4 devices going on.
Oh, that's kind of crazy.
Anyway, so Preston, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I see Cookie has joined us. Hi, Cookie. And so let's talk a little bit. Why don't you introduce Home Inspection Carolina? Tell us a little bit about you, what your company does.
All right. Well, Ashley, thanks for having me. I own Home Inspection Carolina. We do home inspections, termite inspections, radon test. Hey, you're right. There's like 3 different cameras.
I know.
I don't know which one to look.
That one's red.
Yeah. Okay. So I apologize to the audience out there. But yeah, most people buying a home, it's the biggest investment of their lives. And I love being a small part of that. When I was young, we lived in a trailer park, and there's nothing wrong with that. I grew up in a trailer park, but we rode that bus, and the bus went through the neighborhood with all the, people who lived in houses, and then it went to the trailer park. That's where I lived. And somewhere along the line, about 7th, 8th grade, my parents had saved up enough money, and we bought a house. I mean, it was like Christmas. I mean, It was the best. It was a small house, but it was a house. And I just remember how that felt. And it was such an awesome feeling.
It is an awesome feeling. And it's, it's the American dream. And people,
absolutely.
I think everybody deserves that.
That's right. And I'm not saying anything bad about anybody who lives in a trailer park. I mean, I live there. I have nothing wrong with that. But it's just, we achieved, a home.
You set a goal.
Yeah.
Your mom and dad set a goal. And
yeah, and I just remember how good that felt, and I love being a small part of that for other people.
Well, that's fantastic. And that's why I'm in real estate too, is, like Preston said, it is a huge investment.
Right.
So you want to make sure that when you do purchase a home, that you know what you're getting into.
Correct.
And that's why we recommend that you do have home inspections. There's tons of home inspectors out there.
Mm-hmm.
I personally use Home Inspection Carolinas almost exclusively, unless someone else says they would like somebody else. But I use them because I've used them for 5 years now, and I trust 100% what is going to be coming back, what you guys say is accurate, and I just trust the level of service that I'm going to get.
Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome. And shout out to Rudy. Rudy is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love Rudy.
Anyway, so when we order a home inspection,
right?
Tell me a little bit about, what's the whole process?
Okay, sure. Well, there's multiple ways you can order. You can call and schedule it. You can schedule online. We have an app, that sort of thing. I mean, I know your process as a real estate agent. You guys are looking at multiple houses, and you not finally, but you find one that you want to make an offer on. And I know the inventory is low right now, so It's kind of a very competitive thing. And a lot of times, you have to, part of your offer is due diligence, or, inspections have to be done by a certain amount of time.
Right.
And, this time of year, it's not as big a deal, but when it comes to April or May, oh my goodness, we're backed up. Everybody's backed up. And you got to have those inspections done by a certain amount of time.
Yeah. When somebody says you have 2 weeks to get your inspections done, I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
These guys are bugs.
But it comes in, they schedule it. I think all my inspectors are pretty good. They're all well trained. People always ask me, well, who's your best inspector? And I said, I think they're good. There's just different personalities.
Yeah, I've used several of them, and I have, whenever 1 or 2 that I use regularly, when they're not available, I do try and use the same ones over and over and over again. But I've never had a problem.
Oh, thank you.
with anybody.
We try to be thorough, but non-alarmist. And what I mean by that is, like you said, buying a house, like we talked about, is the American dream. It's the biggest investment in somebody's lives. Mm-hmm. I know in my situation when we were 7th and 8th grade, it was all we could do to get that house. I mean, it was like we were just making it across the finish line. So, it would have been devastating to us if we got in and we needed a new roof or a new furnace or something. We needed to know that these were going to at least last for a couple of years, till we build up a little bit of cash reserve. And, we want to protect clients from that as well.
Right.
Same thing.
So what are you guys looking for when you go in? What are you actually inspecting?
Sure. Well, great question. There's 3 mechanical systems on a house and 1 structural system. So I'll start with the structural system. The structural system, starting at the bottom of the house is going to be your footers, your piers, foundation, floor joists, studs, ceiling joists, rafters. I just have to visually go through it. But so we're looking for all the weight distribution points and all of that, and also make sure that the drainage is getting away from the foundation and whatnot to so that it doesn't compromise the structural integrity. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the shell of the house, and obviously there's some internal parts. And we're looking for cracking, anything like that, but just making sure that like a footer says, just like our foot, it distributes the weight. Everything needs to be distributed properly. Yeah. So that's the structural component. So then we probably move on to, we can start with the electrical. The electrical, 3 mechanical systems, electrical, the plumbing system, and the heating and cooling system. Okay. So we'll start with electrical. Obviously, it provides electricity. You need more amperage and more voltage, for things like dryers, water heaters if it's not gas, stove, that sort of thing. They're going to need, 220, 240s, and the other ones are going to be 110, 120s, and the amperage to most of your outlets throughout your house are going to be 15 amp, except for the bathroom, that's 20.
And so let me interrupt you there.
Sure.
So you mentioned washers and dryers and things like that.
Right.
I know that you check, you're checking to see if the dishwasher works properly.
Correct.
You're looking to make sure if it's a built-in microwave, attached microwave, you're going to check that. You're going to check the stove. Right. Those types of things. But do you also check, let's say a washer dryer comes with the house? Do you check that?
Typically, it's not included in a home inspection. That's it's not part of the home inspection standard of practice for any home inspector. But I will certainly run it and just, I can't tell how well it's going to clean clothes, but I'll certainly check it for leaks and, and make sure it's not leaking, or the hoses or the attachments. That's a really big thing. But like you said, it's most of the appliances that are attached to the house in some way, like a stove or a
fixtures, what we call fixtures,
microwave, that sort of thing.
Okay, and then you also mentioned the roof.
Right.
Now, are y'all like getting on top of the roof, or what's going on there?
Sure. If we can get on top of the roof, we will. That's always been my mantra. Because it's certainly better to walk the roof. You can see things from the roof that you can't see. Now, having said that, there's steep slopes that are just unsafe without special equipment and whatnot.
Yes.
In that case, we have binoculars. We also have drones.
That's why we pay you the big bucks, because I'm not doing that.
Right. But we can certainly usually see if there's a problem. Binoculars are high powered and that sort of thing. But to answer your question, if I can get on the roof, if it's a typical ranch house, absolutely. Okay. But if it's a Swiss chalet, maybe not quite as much.
Probably not.
Although I will say this: if you got a Swiss chalet and a steep roof, your roof's going to last longer. The shingles last longer. Yeah.
Well, that's
they don't take as much wear and tear.
So we got a couple of questions. The first question is, from Cookie. She wants to know, is it important to have well water tested? And what if bacteria is found in the water? Can it be rectified? Do you guys do that?
Yes, we do. And it is important to test well water. Especially, well, I would say either way, but even more if the house has been vacant for a while. Okay. Because if the house has been vacant for a while, the water has gotten stagnant, and you could get some algae or coliform bacteria or something like that started in it. I would talk to the, we use K&W Laboratories, and there's another one we use. They can, after they test the water, they can give you recommendations. It's usually some type of bleach, a certain amount, if figure out to kill off the bacteria.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you just go down to the store and pick up a little?
Well, talk to them. I mean, yeah, sometimes they can tell by the amount, how much is in there. That they'll actually prescribe what to do. Now, the other thing you want to test for, depending on nitrates, also lead. If you have an older home, that hopefully there's not many lead pipes out there anywhere. But if it's a really old like farmhouse or something, I would recommend you test for that. And obviously, that test you're going to want to do inside the house because you don't want to do it at the well because you want it to run through those pipes to check for that.
So that just triggered something in my head.
Sure.
Polybutylene pipes.
What's the deal with those?
Yeah, let's talk just a little bit about that.
Sure.
Because people see that on the report and they
freak out. Yeah.
So, what does that mean? Does that mean it's a matter of not if, but when, or,
Good question. Well, let me kind of back up, and I'm going to answer the question, but kind of frame it. Over time, as houses are being built, obviously they're looking for less expensive ways to build a house because we want to pay less, and copper was used for years and years, but copper's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So
as we know, because it goes missing.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother. We could have a whole nother
show.
discussion. I've done inspections where look at it all. But anyway, so they came out with polybutylene piping. This came out in the late '70s, mainstream. I mean, '80s is primarily where you see it. '80s up to the mid '90s. And when we're talking about polybutylene piping, we're talking about usually that gray piping that you see.
Yeah.
The first generation polybutylene piping is bad news.
And how do you know it's first generation?
Good question. The elbows and the T's are also polybutylene with aluminum fittings, and they would just blow off. Fortunately, they only used that for about 2 years because the insurance companies were like, "Yeah, we're not insuring that." So most of the polybutylene piping you see will have copper elbows and T's and copper crimps. Much better, way much better.
So if they have those copper crimps, then we don't necessarily need to have a panic attack.
Not a panic attack, but definitely there is a second problem with polybutylene. Don't mean to. the fittings was the first problem. Okay. The second problem is if you live in the city or in a municipality, your water is treated for just like we talked. Just funny, we just said that about the well. It's with chlorine, and what happens is if that chlorine over time, that chlorine will make that polybutylene brittle and it can crack. So I guess here's my answer. I go inspect a house. Let's say you're buying a house, Ashley, in the '80s, and I look at it's got polybutylene piping. I'm going to check first: is it first generation? If it is, we gotta fix that.
That would be
so that's the
that's
first.
What we call
first
a red flag.
Yeah. There's not many of those left because they've been replaced. Is it second generation? All right, that's good. Now, are there any leaks, any loose fittings, anywhere it's leaking? Okay, fine. We're on a municipality water. Why don't we? Now we can't make the seller do this because this is something you're going to have to do on your own. But I would get like a water conditioning system that can take some of that chlorine out before it enters your house or before it enters the pipe.
Right.
And usually you're talking about $500, $700, depending on how many bells and whistles you want. But actually, if this is the right house, the right school, the right neighborhood, I mean, really $500-700, and that goes for everything.
In the grand scheme of things, it's really nothing. Like you said, if this is their dream home,
it's a fixable
an investment.
There's a workaround.
Yes.
And most things there are a workaround. I always say there's polybutylene piping in the '80s. They're at asbestos in the '50s. There's aluminum wiring in the '60s. I'm sure there's something we're using today that 20 years from now I'll be like, oh, you got OSB. But more than likely there'll be a workaround for that too.
Let's see. Hey, Randy. Hey, Tom. Let's see. What is the difference in an inspection done for a conventional loan versus a home inspection done for FHA or VA? Are you guys certified for FHA or VA?
I have a couple of guys that are, and a couple of guys that aren't. They're very similar. It's just FHA has some, off the top of my head, I'd have to go back and look. 2 years ago when I just read it, I could answer this question perfectly. But there's a couple of things that FHA is like, that's just, government, they've decided they want these things. But to answer your question, they're very, very similar. They're just sticklers on a couple of things.
Right.
But FHA has and VA has certain criteria they're looking for. But it's very similar. Very similar.
All right. And what about testing for radon?
Yes, we do test for radon. There's two different types of tests for radon.
Is it common in this area?
Yes, I mean, certainly not as common as it would be in the mountains, mountains in North Carolina and other parts of the country. I will tell you, you sell in North and South Carolina, correct? Yeah, North Carolina, it's a big thing this year in the continuing education. It's like a fourth of the class. Nationally, 1 in 15 homes have high radon, which is high radon is over 4 picocuries per liter. I would say around here it's probably about 1 in 21, 22. Okay, that's not scientific. That's just off the top of my head. But there are certain areas.
Is it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it, I know that granite can give off some radon, but then I also hear that if you have a basement, you're probably a little bit more likely to have a little bit of radon. Is that it?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Well, let me say this: if you had two houses over an area known for radon, the one with the basement would give slightly higher, but they're both going to get. I mean, let me see if I can answer. Just because you have a basement doesn't mean you're going to have it. It's really what's in the earth that's going to. Right. Now, if both conditions in exact same houses are the exact same, the one with the basement's going to, because it's going to be closer to the soil. But I wouldn't say I'm not buying a basement house or something, because that, believe me, houses, if it's sitting on a high radon area, it's going to have it. Doesn't matter if it's basement or a regular house.
So is that the radon test? Is that built into the price of the inspection, or would that be an add-on?
Sure. It's an add-on, and part of it is because we have to put the monitor out, and the monitor's kind of expensive, but also, we've got to come back 2 days later. It needs to sit for 48 hours, and then we've got to come back and pick it up. So, it's, I think it's 100 and,
whoops. Don't pay attention to that part right there. That was hooked up by duct tape.
There's ghosts in here. No,
sorry.
Yeah, but I did want to say the two different types of radon tests. If all the listeners or viewers out there, if you want to test your own house for radon, those charcoal tests like you get at Lowe's or Home Depot, as long as you follow the directions, they're highly accurate. If you just read the directions, you're going to set it out for 48 hours minimum. Then you've got to mail it off. It's like $15.
Oh, and that's
I've tested it against our machines, and they're very accurate. Now you might say, well, why would anybody pay $180 or whatever for the machine if I can do it for 15? Well, two reasons in real estate. Number one, it takes like a week to get the results back with the charcoals, because you mail it off. Right. And number two, this is the big one for real estate, is obviously if you're testing your own home with charcoals, you're not going to tamper with it because you want to know the results. But if you put that in a seller's house, and I know 98% of sellers are very truthful and all that, but those 2% could take that charcoal, put it in the freezer, they could put it outside, they could open all the doors and windows, and you would never, ever know.
Poke at it.
But if with the monitor system, it has a tamper. If they leave you can still go in and out of your house, but you can't leave all the windows up. We're going to know. It's going to show a tamper sign. So.
Right. Well, let's see. Oh, hi, Sharon. How are you? Let's see if there's any other questions. Does anybody have any specific questions about a home inspection that they've had done? Maybe some questions about a report. I do know what I tell people when I have the home inspected. The report comes back and it is extensive. And one of the things that I am hopefully pretty clear on is don't panic when you see this, because these guys are so thorough that they are going to literally, if you're missing a screw on a light switch, that will get written up. I promise.
Right.
And then if I ever sell a house that doesn't have a loose toilet, I will,
That's a
I
good.
would be surprised.
Well, can I comment on
Yeah,
that?
absolutely.
Well, I will say this: we've got to where now, and tell me if Rudy's doing this. He better be doing it. The small stuff we just fix it. Because by the time you take a picture of it, put it on the report, put it on the summary. The reason the reports are so long, part of it, the state requires a lot of verbiage for one thing,
Right.
And I wish the reports were shorter myself. The other thing is the pictures. We put the pictures in the report because we found out. I mean, I did inspections back in the 90s and we were doing carbon, like 3 carbon copies, and we wrote, this is back before digital pictures or anything. We were taking Polaroids. And what we found out is a picture is worth 1,000 words. And when the contractor can look at the picture, sometimes it's like the left window or the left front crawl space. And then, they're trying to figure out, are you talking about from the front of the house or from the crawl space door, right front from where? And even though it says in the report, the words can be confusing,
right.
But a picture is not. Right. So we put a lot of pictures in the report, put a lot of informational stuff in there. And also there's a summary section. And a lot of times that's what the contractor winds up getting is the summary. So we've been asked to also put the pictures in the summary. So the pictures are double. So I always tell them, the report is going to be long, but that's just a lot of it's informational. The long report doesn't necessarily mean bad.
Exactly. And one of the things that I really like about the guys that work with you is they will sit down with my buyers. And now, I do not recommend that the sellers or the buyers attend the inspection because in my experience, they follow the guys around and they're asking lots of questions. Which sort of distracts you guys, and then it makes it a much longer process. But what I do tell people is it's usually, depending on the size of the house, about a 2-hour period. Right?
Yeah.
So I typically say come in about 30 minutes before they're done. They'll just be wrapping it up. Usually that's about the time that Rudy dons his his coveralls. I like to call it the hazmat suit. And he goes up underneath the house. But what they do, and I really appreciate this, is they will sit down with my clients and go over everything and say, this is what I've found and this is what it means. And I think it's really very helpful for people who are buying a house, because especially once you put an offer in and you get that inspection back and you're like, oh my God, there's all these things wrong with it. And like you said, it's not necessarily about that.
Yeah, you've got to frame it. I always say it's like, I get a physical every year for insurance, and the doctor always tells me the same thing. You're in pretty good shape for your age.
Yes, my doctor told me that too, and I said I did not pay you to
He says, your cholesterol's a little high, you need to work on that. So I leave there, and I'm like, okay, I feel good, and I've got marching orders and things I need to work on. Well, one year, my regular doctor wasn't there, and there was this other guy there. And all he did was tell me about high cholesterol and how bad that was. And now, granted, maybe I needed that, that kick in the rear or whatever, but I left there thinking, I'm going to die. I need to call a funeral home. And what I realized was, home inspection's a lot like a physical for the house. Now, granted, all the folks out there, I am not saying you don't sugarcoat, you don't, nothing like that. But you put things in perspective. I mean, I haven't found a perfect house yet. No. And there's always some things, but, I always try, there's some good things about houses too. I tell them, if they've got an upgrade on the, you got a top of the line furnace there, you got architectural shingles. I mean, there's good things about houses too, just like there's good things about us, and there's some things we need to work on.
Well, and absolutely.
Yeah, some more questions.
I'm looking. Let's see. Jenny's joined. Betsy. Hi, Betsy. Matt Brady. Michael Birch. Michael is actually a previous client of mine, and I do believe that y'all did his inspection.
Oh, hi, Michael. Thanks.
So there you go. And anyway, does anybody have any other questions that you would like addressed?
Awesome. I don't know which camera to look at.
Who does my hair? Camera 1, camera 2 and camera 3.
This is how famous people must feel, I guess.
It's like paparazzi.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that is it. I appreciate you coming by. Now,
can I leave some information if they want to?
Absolutely, and we're going to, both of us, we will post this on Facebook, YouTube, and there is his information.
Sure. We have a website that has a lot of useful information. Check it out. And you can contact me through that website if you ever have a question. Please use me as a reference.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to send people to you with real estate questions. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Right.
I would love to help them out. Now, before you leave, you have a this. For those of you who don't know Preston, he has a thing about wearing. How would you describe it?
Fancy pants, crazy
pants.
In fact, if you look, inspectorcrazypants.com or inspectorfancypants.com.
So anyway, I told him he had to show up in some nice pants. So let's have a look.
It's all for marketing and embarrassing my kids. Now I realize this could be a credibility issue. Liar.
Pants on fire, but I love them.
I figured as cold as it's been, you have to create your own.
Either that or
create your own sunshine or something today.
Yeah, I love it. So anyway, all right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. If you guys have any questions afterwards, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or to Preston. Either one of us would be more than happy to help you guys out or answer any questions.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.